Welcome to the 12th episode of the Chaplain's Assistance Motor Pod. I'm your host, Gary, and this is my podcast where I talk about what's going on in my world of G.I. Joe. That could be news, comics, or just cleaning my basement, my mess, my pit. And each episode I close it out by taking a look at a vehicle that just piqued my interest every 2 weeks. In appreciation of the recently over Hasbro Pulse Con, the motor pool is currently stationed in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, in close vicinity to Hasbro. The past 2 weeks, haven't really done too much in mail calls, but I did get two figures I would like to talk about real quick. I got a Target version 1 and Sub-Zero. The Target is my first version 1. A couple weeks ago I picked up my first version 2. And this one was complete, but it had an issue. The backpack was broken. Both pegs were broken off. The worst news was the fact that the backpack peg was broken inside the Target. So for the first time, I held the figure in a vise, holding it, supporting it by my hand, and then in the other hand using a hand drill to drill out the plug. Now, normally I use a drill press because I prefer not having to hand hold the drill, but I was successful. I was able to collapse it and pull it and pluck it out. Now you might be like, well, that's not a complete Target, but however, I did have in my spare figure parts, I did have a perfect backpack. So I added that, and now I have my first Target version 1 complete in my collection. Now the other one was Sub-Zero. Now, Sub-Zero was missing a few parts, and the Sub-Zero that I had was missing a few parts. Together, I ended up with one complete Sub-Zero. Sub-Zero is a really cool figure with a lot of cool accessories. The 4 mortar shells, the bipod for his machine gun, the belt that feeds into the machine gun. He's just a very well-rounded, very well-accessorized figure, and I've wanted to complete him for some time, but I was just looking for that right mix of accessories missing or to complete the one that I had, and I was able to find an incomplete one, so that was pretty cool. So now I can check 2 more off my list of figures that will complete my collection from 82 to 92. Going back to the big news was Hasbro Pulse Con. On October 23rd, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, I'm finishing up my Saturday at work. And I just wanted to put it on in the background just so I could listen to it while I'm finishing up some reporting. What I wasn't expecting was it to be compelling. They opened up with the classified figures with the Cobra Bat. Pictures have been leaked online of what they were doing with the Cobra Bat over in Asia, so it wasn't a big surprise for me. I wasn't super excited. I've known it was coming, and the G.I. Joe classified line is something that I've been waning on because of the size and the space it takes up, and not sure gauging my interest as I'm really enjoying going back into O-Ring G.I. Joe. I was kind of cool on the bat, all right, another semi-updated version of the original version 1, which has been a trend with the classified series, not really pushing the envelope with character design from the 1980s. And what they then went into was the color-changing Zartan. Now, the color-changing Zartan is cool because finally we get the color changing feature that we didn't get with the original release. But what really drew my attention was the masks included with it. I had seen some of them before, but I didn't really take a close look. And what really draws me out of everything to Zartan was the Soft Master mask. This is the first time in anything other than the comic books that we finally got a Soft Master something. We've seen Hard Master several times. We've seen Blind Master in the movies and in figure form. We have even seen Granny Arashikage. but never soft master. So that made me excited. And the other thing is 2 accessories that he comes with, a sniper rifle and a bow. This is a very complete Zartan. Now, looking at the pictures online, I noticed that the arrow quiver has the Arashikage symbol. Okay, reuse of parts. But he's not Arashikage. Get rid of this. Come on. I mean, everybody that's a ninja isn't tied to the Arashikage in some... Well, they are by lore, but they're not part of the Arashikage. In the comics, Zartan was the apprentice of the swordsmith Anahashi. The other thing I didn't notice was he had some talismans in his original release, but the peg holes are there for him in the figure, but I don't see the talismans included. So this is one of those instances where I did manage to get my one for myself. I'm going to take some bits and bobs and play around and create my ideal Zartan. But the color changing is cool. It's temperature activated, and it'll be part of my collection. The next reveal from the classified was Tiger Force Outback. What really struck me was the fact that they made an absolute new character buck for Outback, more of a bigger ripped build, but not as big as the Roadblock build. It's kind of like, if you want to think about like peak performance human being, not superhuman, or even, just a big guy like Roadblock. And that's awesome. I didn't really get a good look at his sculpt for his forearms, but they say that it's supposed to have like a hair feature, so it's like, hairy guy. But the big thing was the head sculpt. They really made him feel like a grizzled operator, like a guy that's, really seen some stuff, and did the hair with the gray Tiger Force motif. And the hair really reminded me of Old Man Logan, Old Man Hawkeye, that 2-pack set. And when they really got Old Man Hawkeye's hair right, it looks like they did the same kind of thing with Outbacks. Then you have the Tiger Force logo on his chest, right above the midsection cut. It's a little bit different. I know that the original design on Tiger Force Outback would go well over that ab crunch crease, so I get why they ended up doing it. But his accessories are on point, and the best part of it is he has his flashlight attached to his left thigh. Outback is an amazing home run. I didn't think I was going to be as excited as I ended up being for him. I managed to get 2 on order, so I'm really happy with that. One for me and one for my Norwegian friend. At this point, he's the most guy I'm excited for. And, the orange shirt and, the dark green pants, just perfect. And just a cool choice to lead the Tiger Force rather than going with a repaint of Duke or a repaint of Flint or a repaint of Roadblock. But in my defense, I also would have accepted our Puro or Tiger Force Airtight from Brazil. Then the next 2 was because of Tiger Force, which is a Target exclusive. Then they go to the Python Patrol, which is also a Target exclusive. Target has really made sure that they've had quantity on hand, so getting these wasn't a big deal. But able to get a Python Viper and a Python Bat. The decos are redone in that Pythonized, look from the 80s. And it's really cool to get a Python Bat that wasn't available in the vintage line. And it was kind of weird that the regular Bat wasn't being available while the Python Bat is. So you have a little bit of a logistics thing going on there. And I've already decided with Python Patrol, much like other sub-teams I'm doing in the vintage line, I'm only going to be a one-of. I'm not going to try to army build those. It will just expand what I'm doing already too much. They look cool. And one of the things I did notice was the Python Bat and also the regular Bat have that removable chest plate that when you open it up, you see the internals. It remains covered up because it seems kind of odd that you would leave an area into the center of a robot open for fire. It's almost like a target. They closed out of that, and then they went into Spirit. Much like Outback, I was absolutely impressed by Spirit. they went above and beyond by consulting the Navajo tribe and to make his look authentic, pure, and not patronizing, and to get their approval. They really did a nice job with the head sculpt. He looks serious, he looks focused, and it is a good emotion for the head sculpt. It looks really good in pictures, and I like the way they made his hair long, tied it back. But one of the best things is the rifle. The rifle with the painted wood accents in the scope looks out of this world. And Freedom, the best part about Freedom is the changeable wings. So Freedom can perch on his backpack or soar in the skies. And as long as the feet don't break, I think we're in good shape. And he, the two knives, one of them looks carved like Scrimshaw. It is great. The presentation of the figure is actually really cool on this as well. I didn't expect Spirit to like Spirit as much, but here was the second figure that really, really drew me in. And like Outback, I don't think, not only is there not another version of these characters out, but I don't think I need to kit bash accessories or grab from another toy line like Marvel Legends or potentially Valaverse coming down the line to add to it and then make it my own, because I think at this point they've done a really good job enhancing what was originally brought to the table. They followed up Spirit with Storm Shadow. So this is the third version of Storm Shadow, but this is the first one that really emulates his original look from 1984. They added a hood, which is kind of his version 2. They really tried to nail down that version 1 look. He is the ninja clad in white. One of the couple things that I noticed about this figure was they didn't have the arm tattoos as we saw in the images when they were rolling out the classified line last year. They showed like full sleeve arm tattoos, much like a Yakuza. And now they're gone. And that's okay. I'm cool with that. And he does have the wrist wraps, which would hide his Arashikage symbol. And I'm cool with that as well. He does come with a bow. And here's another interesting, what some people might not like, is that he's using a compound bow versus a recurve bow. With my limited bow and arrow experience, I do know that a compound bow takes up less room than a recurve bow. So for me, it makes sense that Storm Shadow has that compound bow in his gear. And I appreciate that because it's also more of his version 2, which I sometimes gravitate more to. And with the hood, it really does. It does have a little bit of that mix of version 1 with a little hint of version 2. It's not the Dazzle camouflage or the Tetris camouflage. He doesn't have the rope going across his chest. He has the bandolier like version 1. That's okay. And he has the black belt around him, but it's more pouchy, so it looks more like a utility belt. I'm okay with that too. For me, this one's great. I would display this Storm Shadow over the other two. While I still do enjoy the second version of Storm Shadow's Andrew Koji's face, maybe I'll try to swap that out and just see how it looks, see how it fits overall. But I don't have to. I think this is another one where they did enough. You don't need a kit bash. You don't need to take some pieces from, Arctic Storm Shadow from Amazon. And you definitely don't need to take anything from Storm Shadow from G.I. Joe Origins Snake Eyes. So this is a good figure. I'm not excited about it. It isn't a taking Storm Shadow and taking him to the next level. It's happy overall, but just not excited. And then finally, they're closing out the segment. It is Crocmaster. Now, the 1987 year leaves me hot and cold. They've really pushed some things in 1987. And Crocmaster is swing and a miss sometimes. He really works well when he has all his accessories as a version 1. And then they brought him up that next level for the Classified series. big buck, really cool vest. They kept the alligator eye on the belt buckle with the codpiece. It is just ridiculous as a figure. He still has the hose that goes from his mouth breather to his back. And the cool thing is they made a 12-inch Fiona, the crocodile, and she has babies that fit in her mouth. It is such a home run that I wasn't expecting. It is, to me, like the Outback. I wasn't expecting Outback to be that good, and I wasn't expecting Crocmaster to be this good. It's crazy. This is a conversation piece. You get it open, you open up the package. This is something that people are going to be like, what the heck is he? And it's Crocmaster, and he's done to the nines. You know, he has his whip. He has his stuff to wrangle Fiona, and I wasn't expecting to like him nearly as much as I am. So I'm happy that he's on pre-order. And yes, I pre-ordered everything. I couldn't believe, you know, what I was saying, and I wanted everything in the wave because I was getting excited again for G.I. Joe Classified. I got the breaker, and it was like, cool, but I'm like, my initial excitement wasn't there once I got him. And I got Scarlet and Akiko, and the excitement wasn't there, more of a completionist thing. So I really needed an injection of excitement and for the Classified line, and that's what I got. So they broke away, and they did a tribute to Bob Prupus, which was absolutely awesome, that they're remembering some of the people that really brought G.I. Joe back in the 1980s, especially the guy who literally did Prupus. Then they came back with retro news. So at this point, you know, during, you know, Bob Prupus's thing, I had it on in the background, and I'm filling out reports. And then they said, oh, the retro line. And I'm like, oh, okay, what's the retro line? And then they announce the Snake Eyes Storm Shadow 2-pack. I look over, and I couldn't believe it. O-rings. And that is, for me, like literally the one thing that would get me to buy the entire retro line was O-rings. Because for me, and what I'm trying to cultivate in my collection is I do want to have figures that I'm not going to be afraid to play with. I want to put weapons in their hands. I want to make pew-pew sounds. I want to just, you know, karate kicks and just scale, you know, Terrordrome walls. And I want to play. But I'm afraid these action figures are getting older. They're getting stiffer and brittle as the plastic ages. And I can't do that. And it's also getting expensive to buy them and open them too. But that's another whole story. But they re-released Snake Eyes version 1.5 and Storm Shadow version 1. And we haven't had an O-ring figure at retail or available through Hasbro proper since 2009. The last figure was Snow Job from the Rockslide Past and Present set. And that was, you know, the Rockslide is also known as the Polar Battle Bear. It's been over 11 years. The last time O-rings were available was the G.I. Joe Collectors Club in 2010. And they released the now impossible to find Big Lob. And 11 years with no O-rings. Some people were happy for the modern figures getting back in the Walmart retro line, but for me, this is what I was wanting. I was wanting O-rings. And I never swear on my Twitter feed, and I did. I was like, holy F-bomb, O-rings. Hasbro brought back the O-rings. They're taking a risk. They don't think anybody's going to buy these. And they made a limited quantity. And there was the sin of, hey, draw on this collector's box of Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow, and Snake Eyes is in his version 2 outfit because everybody loves version 2 Snake Eyes. But Hasbro did keep some of their original O-ring molds, not destroyed or lost or disposed of, like a lot of people have been, you know, propagated, because we've known for a long time that they've kept the molds for Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow, because they've remolded Snake Eyes, a version 1.5, a bunch of times. And I don't care. I mean, this is what I want, and I'm totally down with it. $40 for a 2-pack. And there has been some scuttlebutt about the price point, and nobody's going to be happy. Let's be real. Nobody's going to be super thrilled. I am thrilled. Is the price a little high? Yeah, but for me, I got to support the brand, but also because this is what I wanted. But the other thing is, and this is the manufacturing side of me in my head going on, this was probably a limited run. When you don't have the scale of quantity, the price point goes up. It costs money to turn the machine on. I mean, people don't want to hear that. But to set up to run a production run, there is a base cost. And that base cost gets amortized the more and more pieces you run. And here's Hasbro trying to take a calculated risk, making a limited quantity product. Yes, they did come up with some new fresh packaging, cool. Again, all this stuff is all limited quantity. So everything in this box set is limited quantity. So everything has a little bit more cost than if they made 500,000, when you're only making a couple thousand or less than, or 1,000. I don't know how much they did. So the price point's $20 per figure, $40 for the pair, because you can only buy as a pair. And the other cool thing was Snake Eyes on the card back is version 1. So that's cool. And that is awesome. I'm happy they at least met halfway on that. I was like, I couldn't believe it. At this point, I was glued, and I wasn't getting any work done. I mean, it was almost noon at this point anyway. So everybody was clocking out, and I was just hanging back at my desk, just like, I'm watching this. But absolutely jaw-dropping, like almost had me shaking, and I mean it, was the Sky Striker. And all the unlocks, the HasLab, Sky Striker, O-ring style, 2-seater, comes with Ace and the co-pilot. Loadout, the stand. I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. And I own no modern Sky Strikers. I had, at one point, I was up to 6 Sky Strikers, and 4 of them were complete. I sold one of the complete ones. I sold one of the less complete ones. I still have a junker that somebody could put together and potentially restore. And I left 3 because when I finally have a plan going for getting my flag out soon-ish. It's like I want 3 Sky Strikers. The Conquest is more of an Air Force type, but the F-14 Tomcat absolutely is a Navy airplane, and it needs to be on the deck of the flag. Now I have 3 keepers, but this O-ring style Sky Striker with all new tooling, you have 2 levers, one for the landing gear and one for the swept wing. They spent money on re-engineering this. All in. I'm all in on this. Literally, this will just mean I keep one each of the 2 major variations for the Sky Striker, and then I'm going to take this new one and put it right on my flag. I've already decided if this HasLab goes through, I'm absolutely doing that. And you have stretch goals like Scarlett in her flight suit, which was unexpected. And they didn't really show too much of Scarlett's face, but it'd be really funny to see that they probably kept her, lack of a better term, ugly head sculpt in there. It has a built-in arrestor hook, so you don't need to worry about losing your arrestor hook on a flag, which is a pain in the butt to find anyway. And different fire effects for the ejection seats, the missiles, just next levels. They're planning on doing cloth parachutes, which is great. The plastic parachutes are essentially like plastic bags that you get at the grocery store if your state doesn't tax them out of existence, like Connecticut is right now. And they rip and they tear. Again, when they get old, it's just what happens. And it is just amazing. Like, I was shaking. I couldn't believe it. The way they presented it with all the extra, by the time, if this thing hits all the stretch goals for the 18,000 backers, you end up with 6 figures, the Sky Striker, the stand, multiple loadouts, the weapons transport or tow vehicle, the gas pump, it is just incredible. It is absolutely an enhancement, and it's all O-ring, so it fits in with my existing O-ring collection, which also means I have less desire for modern figures, because I will totally go all in on this thing. And I did. I went as much as I could. I don't know what else to say about the Sky Striker other than I'm excited for it. I think that for the amount of engineering in it, it is probably on the higher side. But I'm voting with my dollar that it's worth it. I know there's people that aren't fans of HasLab. Why does Hasbro, a billion-dollar corporation, need to run a Kickstarter? And they want no risk. That's how companies stay in business. They minimize their risk. They make sure they make money. And if Hasbro goes away, then there's no more new G.I. Joe product by Hasbro. It becomes all fan-oriented, and then I'm sure there's some rights issue, and then somebody, starts suing everybody into oblivion. The big failing of Hasbro Pulse is the international shipping. I will admit to that. Thankfully, I'm blessed living in the United States that Hasbro's in the United States, so I don't have that issue, but I absolutely hear some of my friends' problems with the HasLab model about that. Otherwise, I understand the HasLab program, and this is my second HasLab. I backed the Razor Crest a week before it blew up on the Mandalorian TV show. I get it, and I am happy that they're offering something new in other aspects. I think it's a next level O-ring toy, which is what I had hoped that they would have done originally with the retro line. But if they choose to continue doing this for the retro line, I am absolutely going to have to reconsider some other purchases that I've been making. Again, I can't stress it how absolutely over the moon excited I am for the Sky Striker, and I'm crossing my fingers and my toes that it gets produced. And at the time of this recording, there's 4,013 backers. So now that we're done with the Hasbro Pulse Con news that I am absolutely excited about, I'll close out this episode taking a look at the Mudfighter. It's a small bomber, came with its pilot Dogfight. It is a quaint little prop plane, and my fondest memory of the Mudfighter is from G.I. Joe Special Missions number 28, where it is the only plane on the flag to take off in the middle of a rainstorm to take on 2 Python conquests. It's part of a really good aerial issue, and it holds its own, with Dogfight using his tricks of the trade, and it's a great issue, and it closes out kind of abruptly in a Larry Hama style. That's my memory of the Mudfighter, and why I actually wanted to get one. Open up and take a look at Dogfight. The initial thing I get when I look at Dogfight is he looks almost like a knockoff G.I. Joe. And I mean that only because his build out is like a wide chest, but his arms are kind of spindly and his legs are kind of spindly. It's like just very thin, but he has this big chest sculpt. And he has this bright orange mustache. He's pretty quaint. The bomber jacket isn't thick. It's very thin, unlike, let's say, General Hawk version 2's. And he's got a white button-down shirt underneath. He's got his wings over his left breast, and he's got a silver patch of some kind over his right breast. The sleeves are brown and cuffed to his painted hands. And it's a decent, look. And then he goes to his almost blue jeans pants with a black belt in a holster that goes down on his right thigh, and a silver pistol, and so in black like combat boots. And he's got little knee pads molded in blue. It's like there's enough paint apps, but then it's like, the knee pads aren't painted. So what's going on? I don't know. It's interesting. Like I said, just the way he's built out, he just looks a little just a little off than other G.I. Joe figures, but he's cool at the same time. But then you go up to the head, and then so he has his little, pilot's hat that looks like something that you might see in an airliner, and then he has like silver headphones, and they're small, so he looks kind of like old-timey in the head sculpt, and he's got like silver, aviator glasses on. A solid look. He looks almost like he can be a member of the Village People as the biker, if he just painted his mustache a different color. But it's just like I said, the biggest thing that's off-putting to me is the spindly legs and arms compared to the torso build. The torso build is very wide. I can't say that enough. He does come with a 1911 inspired pistol with an extended barrel and scope sight mounted on top. It is a solid gun, maybe a slightly oversized, but a pretty intimidating pistol. And it's just funny how they give him a pistol for his thigh, and then they give him a larger pistol to hold on to. So the pistol I appreciate because it's like a little bit of added value with the action figure. For whatever reason, it completes just his like little niche that he fits in as a fighter pilot, and he is cool. He would also look good, like let's say if you had a transport plane, he would look good as a pilot as one of those. Like, put him in the front. But not a transport plane. He came with a prop bomber, this little green guy called the Mudfighter. And the Mudfighter is a very simple plane with a black open canopy that pops up. So there's no glass in there. Pretend there's glass because this is a lower cost toy. It has a reasonably detailed cockpit for what he'd be looking at for the screen and stuff, which will lend to nice little touches, but it's not overly detailed, and he does have like a textured seat to lay back in. Now, the body's molded in like a two-piece grain that snaps together, and it has molded on front non-retracting landing gear on the front, and then there's these two little black, for back of a term, wing extenders on the sides. Now, the wing extenders also serve as the tail fins facing downwards, so that is an interesting choice. So the tail fins normally on an airplane extend upwards, but on the Mudfighter they extend downwards. So that is an interesting futuristic look for this prop plane. The other thing about this plane is the prop is in the rear. It makes it stand out, much like in experimental planes that were popular in the 70s, one that unfortunately John Denver passed away in. It is a 7-blade prop, and they're curved. I understand why it's curved. It's going to be less apt to break as a toy. I don't know how to describe it other than it works with the rest of the plane. It seems that the body of the plane obscures most of it when I look at it head on. So I don't know how well it would draw air from over the plane to get to it. Again, it just works overall with what they're trying to do with this. If I was to describe the aesthetic of this plane, it would be futuristic, non-Battle Force 2000. So it is not that white angularity. It is this more green blobbish. I would be more than welcome to see a Dan Klingensmith book where he talks about the origin of this plane in Dogfight. Now, it holds 16 silver bombs, and the silver bombs are clustered nicely, giving it a heavy payload, I would think, for this size of airplane. And also, it would be not a fast, because it's a prop, it's not going to be fast. It's going to be slow and methodical. But also, at that point, it's good that it's small because it's going to be an easy target or easier target otherwise. One thing that I would be remiss to miss is the twin Gatling guns in the front. Now, this is one of the under-detailed portions of the plane because they just come out from the draft of the mold, and they just look blocky in the front. So it doesn't really stand out in the front like the Rattler's Gatling gun would. And this could have been an area where when they came up for the front landing gear that they maybe could have molded this out of a separate piece to snap in just to give it a little more definition with the Gatling guns. The top is well detailed with some simulated flaps that don't separate like you would find on a Sky Striker. And it has some details on the top, and it's much more detailed at the top of the plane than the bottom on the belly. And that's about it. The wing bomb racks do snap through the wing, and they do protrude through the top of the wing. As a value toy, some shortcuts like this can be expected. And the decals are on mine, or at least are a little sparse, but well or tastefully placed. And then there's one decal that's a black shield with a yellow lightning bolt through it. And then it looks like something like an airplane prop spinning off into the corner that says Ground Assault Wing. So obviously this plane is, because it's a bomber, it's for assaulting ground forces. And it's just a kitschy little vehicle with a kitschy little driver. Now, if I was to grade this on the Python Comics patented 5-bomb rating scale, where quarter bombs and half bombs are applicable, this plane is a solid 3. If I didn't have the memory of it that I do, I would be happy just to have the 1. If it had more detail, I would definitely want more. But it is just, for me, in a toy line that has Phantom X-19s and Sky Strikers and Rattlers and Night Ravens and Hurricanes, it's a 3. It has its place. It's cool. I got one that's really nice, or reasonably nice, and I got a complete Dogfight. And if I find a second one in my collection, I'm not going to sell it. If I find a second one for dirt cheap, I'm going to pick it up. But I'm not going to go out of my way to hunt down a second Mudfighter. Its problem is that it's overshadowed by other great aircraft in the line. Well, that's going to do it for this extra long episode of the Chaplain's Assistance Motor Pod. We've seemed to have overstayed our welcome, and as Ben Franklin said, fish and visitors smell after 3 days. So I think it's time we take showers and head back to Staten Island to the motor pool and leave Rhode Island behind. I've been your host, Gary. Thank you for listening to the Chaplain's Assistance Motor Pod. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at ChaplainJoePod. Pardon my Instagram, I am not perfect at it. I'd also like to remind you that we are part of the Pint O Comics extended family. We are the little brother that doesn't like to talk to their big brother because we are strange but not estranged. You can find all of their information at www.pintocomics.com. If you're watching this on the YouTube stream, don't forget to like the video or comment on the video or tell your friends about us. It is a great way to support this podcast, help me grow and get better all at the same time. If you're listening to on a podcatcher, where we are available on Anchor.fm, our host, which is also with Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and other podcatchers as well. Leave a review. Again, it's all about community and making things better and bringing more people into this conversation and sharing our love of G.I. Joe. With that all out of the way, there are more missiles to be delivered to the masses. See ya.